Hello, my name is Patrick Kerstetter, and I am here with Anthony Malaguti and Michael Kim to discuss international macroeconomics. We will start off by covering the international flows of capital and goods. The key macroeconomic difference between open and closed economies is that in an open economy, a country's spending in any given year need not equal its output of goods and services. A country can spend more than it produces by borrowing from abroad, or it can spend less than it produces and lend the difference from foreigners. The equation shown is from National Income Accounting from Chapter 2, and when it is modified to account for both domestic and foreign spending, the equation changes where expenditure and domestic output equal the sum of consumption, investment, government purchases, and exports. In an open economy, financial markets and goods markets are closely related. To see the relationship, we can rewrite the National Income Accounts Identity equation by subtracting C and G from both sides. This form of the National Income Accounts Identity shows that an economy's net exports must always equal the difference between its saving and its investment. So far in our discussion of the international flows of goods and capital, we have rearranged accounting identities. Now we will look into the model that explains the behavior of these variables. In Figure 6.2, the saving and investment in a small open economy is shown. In a closed economy, the real interest rate adjusts to equilibrate savings and investment. In a small open economy, the interest rate is determined in world financial markets. The difference between saving and investment determines the trade balance. Here, there is a trade surplus because the world interest rate savings exceeds investment. In Figure 6.3, an increase in government purchases or a reduction in taxes reduces national saving and thus shifts the saving schedule to the left from S1 to S2. The result is a trade deficit. In Figure 6.4, a fiscal expansion in a foreign economy large enough to influence world saving and investment raises the world interest rate from R1 to R2. The higher world interest rate reduces investment in the small open economy, causing a trade surplus. Finally, in Figure 6.5, an outward shift in the investment schedule from IR1 to IR2 increases the amount of investment at the world interest rate R. As a result, investment now exceeds saving, which means the economy is borrowing from abroad and running a trade deficit. This is a shift in the investment schedule in a small open economy.
Next, we will extend our analysis of international flows of capital and of goods and services by considering the prices of international transactions. The exchange rate between two countries is the price at which residents of those countries trade with each other. There are two classifications of exchange rates, nominal and real. The nominal exchange rate is the relative price between the currencies of two countries. In other terms, it is the number of units of the domestic currency that can purchase one unit of a given foreign currency. For example, we can say 1 US dollar can purchase 19 Mexican pesos, or we can say 1 Mexican peso can purchase a 19th of a US dollar, or roughly 5 cents. A rise in the exchange rate, say 1 US dollar is now worth 25 Mexican pesos, is called an appreciation of the dollar. A fall in the exchange rate, on the other hand, is called a depreciation. The real exchange rate is the relative price of the goods of two countries, and is also referred to as the terms of trade. It tells us the rate at which we can trade the goods of one country for the goods of another. For example, let's say an American car costs 20,000 US dollars and a Mexican car costs 760,000 pesos. At an exchange rate of 19 pesos to a dollar, the American car costs 380,000 pesos. We conclude that the American car costs one half of what the Mexican car costs, or we can exchange two American cars for one Mexican car. The real exchange rate can be denoted by the equation shown. The real exchange rate is equal to the nominal exchange rate multiplied by the ratio of price levels. The real exchange rate between two countries is computed for the nominal exchange rate and the price levels. So if the real exchange rate is high, foreign goods are relatively cheap and domestic goods are relatively expensive. If the real exchange rate is low, foreign goods are relatively expensive and domestic goods are relatively cheap. Consumers will purchase the goods depending where the relative price is cheapest. Therefore, we can state the relationship between the real exchange rate and net exports as nx is equal to nx epsilon, which illustrates a negative relationship between the two variables. Furthermore, the trade balance must equal the net capital outflow, which equals savings minus investment. The graph below illustrates these conditions. The real exchange rate is determined by the intersection of the vertical line representing savings minus investment and the downward sloping net export schedule. At this intersection, the quantity of dollars supplied for the flow of net capital abroad equals the quantity of dollars demanded for the net export of goods and services. Figure 6-9 shows the effects of expansionary fiscal policies at home on the real exchange rate. Expansionary fiscal policy at home, such as an increase in government purchase or cut in taxes, reduces the national saving. The fall in saving reduces the supply of dollars to be exchanged into foreign currency, which raises the equilibrium real exchange rate from epsilon 1 to 2. Figure 6-10 shows the effects of expansionary fiscal policy abroad on the real exchange rate. Expansionary fiscal policy abroad reduces world saving and raises the world interest rate from R*1 to R*2. The increase in the world interest rate reduces investment at home, which in turn raises the supply of dollars to be exchanged into foreign currencies. As a result, the equilibrium real exchange rate falls from epsilon 1 to 2.
Next, we will be discussing the Mundell-Fleming model. The Mundell-Fleming model is a dominant policy paradigm for studying open economy and fiscal policy. The Mundell-Fleming model assumes that the economy is small and open, with perfect capital mobility, and allows us to see how exchange rates influence monetary and fiscal policy. In a small open economy, the domestic interest rate might rise slowly, leading foreigners to purchase bonds, which then brings the domestic interest rate backwards. If anything started to drive the domestic interest rate downward, then capital would flow out of the country to earn a higher return abroad, and this would drive the domestic interest rate back up. International flow of capital is rapid enough to keep the domestic interest rate equal to the world interest rate. The curves in this graph show that the level of income and the exchange rate that satisfy equilibrium both in the goods market and the money market. The intersection of these two curves shows that the level of income and the exchange rate that satisfy equilibrium both in the goods market and in the money market. When a fiscal expansion under floating exchange rates occurs, an increase in government purchases or a decrease in taxes shifts the IS curve to the right, raising exchange rates while having no effect on income. When a monetary expansion under floating exchange rates occur, an increase in the money supply shifts the LM curve to the right, lowering the exchange rate and raising income. Trade restrictions under floating exchange rates shift the net exports in graph A to the right, making the curve in graph B shift to the right, raising the exchange rate and leaving income unchanged. A fiscal expansion under fixed exchange rates shifts the IS curve to the right. To maintain a fixed exchange rate, the Fed must increase money supply. This shifts the LM curve to the right. In contrast to the case of floating exchange rates, under fixed exchange rates, a fiscal expansion raises income. A monetary expansion under fixed exchange rates. If the Fed tries to increase money supply, it will put a downward pressure on the exchange rate. To maintain the fixed exchange rate, the money supply and LM curve must return to their initial positions. Under fixed exchange rates, normal monetary policy is ineffectual. A trade restriction under fixed exchange rates shifts the IS curve to the right, inducing an increase in the money supply to maintain a fixed exchange rate. Because of this, aggregate income increases.
Thank you.